I'm Josh Bell.
And I'm Jason Harris, and we co-host a podcast called Awesome Movie Year.
Each season, we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year.
We deep dive into these specific years, and we pick out why they were such great years for films. We go over the biggest hits, the biggest flops, the best pictures, some personal picks, some cult classics.
Years we've covered in past seasons include 1994, 2003, 1977, and 1984, and we've got all of film history to look forward to. So check us out at awesomemovieyear.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Jonathan E. That's the name. History days come and go, but the champion plays on. You know how the game serves us. It has a definite social purpose.
Welcome to the latest episode of the podcast That Wouldn't Die. I'm your host, Kevin. With me, as always, is Aaron.
Hey!
This week, we're discussing the science fiction classic Rollerball, starring James Caan, John Houseman, and others.
Absolutely, and all the rest. And I do not like the question mark on classic, because clearly this is a classic. It is a slice from another time.
That is true. I love 70s movies that take place in the future, but are very 70s in their aesthetic.
But are still 70s nonetheless.
Absolutely. Each week on the podcast That Wouldn't Die, we discuss guilty pleasures and forgotten classics of the horror and sci-fi genre. Aaron, what's up with you?
I am coming to you from our parents' guest bedroom somewhere on the Central Coast, which is why I'm in deep dark. I have extreme lighting on one side and just some kind of yellow haze on the rest of me. This is the best it's gonna get. Quite frankly, their Wi-Fi is so terrible. It's a wonder that we're even connected right now.
I mean, who's to say it'll last? Right?
Who's to say? Who's to say? I make no promises. I am also in my pajamas, so why shouldn't I be comfortable?
It's early Sunday morning. For those of you,
and by early, it's almost 9 o'clock.
That is early. Sweet Lord. I also just kind of rolled out of bed, set up the computer and let the good times roll.
The coffee is coursing through my veins.
Why don't you give us your 30-second synopsis of Rollerball?
As with all movies that deal with our dystopian future, the corporations are out of control and now control the whole world. So to appease the masses, we have a gladiator situation pitting cities against cities. People die, it's fantastic. And strangely, with all their power, they don't seem to have a lot of power when it comes to James Caan trying to be forced to retire. If he says no, they're just like, well, we'll let the game play out. Except he's survived this for 10 years. Why do you think all of a sudden in the next 2 games now, this is how you get rid of him? Anyway, James Caan wins. The end.
It's important to remember the fact that there was a time when James Caan was considered a leading man.
He was. He's young, he's trim, personable. We only remember of his Sonny Corleone, or what is it? What's the Honeymoon in Las Vegas? Where he just becomes old and angry and wrinkled, or Elf. He's always, in his later years, he's just always angry.
I read this thing about James Caan, how in the 70s, he was in The Godfather. He was he was a star, right? And then basically cocaine wiped out most of the 80s. Right. So by the late 80s, he kind of was just taking what he had to take, including the immortal classic Alien Nation, starring Andy Serkis, which I love. And then from there he got Misery, which kind of really put him back on the map.
Forgot about Misery. He's a great actor. He's done a lot of great things.
Right.
I do love Misery.
You forget, and this was true of sports as well, that cocaine just demolished careers. I mean, Richard
Yeah.
Dreyfuss, same thing. He was like a big star. He did Jaws and a few other things in the late 70s. Then the early 80s, wiped out with cocaine.
Dude, I would
And
not
then-
want to hang out with a wired out Richard Dreyfuss. That sounds
but you
terrible.
love a Richard Dreyfuss.
I
The
do
furrier,
love
the
a
better.
little furry Richard
A
Dreyfuss.
little
but
Ewok.
a little Ewok. I can carry him in my backpack. Sex dwarf. But the idea of him then just like running around my house and talking at me 1,000 miles a minute, that does not seem fantastic.
Does not indeed. Does not indeed. Now, had you had seen this before, I'm assuming.
I don't think I had.
Oh,
or
really?
if I had, it was so long ago that I have no memory of it.
I heard about this movie, and then I want to say, like maybe almost 20 years ago, there was a remake starring Chris Klein from American Pie and Rebecca Romaine and LL Cool J.
LL Cool J. And how did that work out?
2% on Rotten Tomatoes. People were not a fan.
I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in this. I mean, clearly roller derby was a thing, and they decided why not just kick it up a notch.
It is. I mean, it's absolutely. I mean, we've talked about this before. This was the time when roller derby was considered like a legitimate sport across America back in the 70s. So not being an expert of roller derby, I had to look it up. Evidently in real roller derby, not a lot of motorcycles are involved.
That's what I'm saying. They had to like cage match it up. So they're like roller derby because they got to make it like a gladiator. People have to die. There has to be a lot of drama. And so you can kill people. You can just beat the crap out of them. You can have motorcycles popping their head like grapes, whatever it takes. Yeah.
So I remember hearing about it basically from the remake, which I did see at the time. But I didn't see the original until I want to say like 2 or 3 years ago for the first time. And I'll reserve comment.
All right.
I'll let you know what I think.
How dare you, sir? How dare you, sir? I mean, the first thing you see in this movie is the font. It is iconic, and it was created just for this.
Absolutely.
It's called Rollerball 75, but it is so iconic that it really captures this kind of, it's like a future 70s font. And it's just a really cool, I went online and I saw all these like Rollerball shirts you can buy right now with that font. And it just looks so cool. It is so cool.
That is the craziest thing. That is, and they have that font on their jerseys for like their numbers, number 8 or whatever. Yeah, it is iconic, no question. Sweet Jesus.
Again, corporations rule everything. We've been getting these messages since the 60s, and no one is heeding the beat of the drum as corporations become more and more powerful.
Right. In this movie, they run the world, and this is like, I think this is the only sport that is allowed as like kind of a distraction. You know, James Caan is Jonathan E. because they don't give you last names. So everyone's chanting Jonathan, Jonathan whenever he does anything.
Which is not a butch name. I just want to point that out.
It is not. So he plays for Houston, and then they play against teams like in Manila and Madrid, and you're like, I mean, I follow football, and it takes a lot out of these teams just flying, 3 hours to the real Houston. You know what I mean? Much less. We're taking a 12-hour flight to Madrid, Spain, or whatever it is. So,
but I mean, if it's the only sport that's in the world, then you can really have some good players here. But by players, it's how many people can we kill while scoring the most points?
Well, and the ball is like literally like a shot put. It's like
heavy.
A metal. It's heavy. He dropped it on the floor and went pop, thump, clang as it crashed down. Yeah, it is. It's no fun in games.
They'd literally kill people by dragging their body over to the track where the ball was going to come out.
Yes. Well, which I think it's interesting about this movie is this is the first movie where literally they listed the stunt performers, because that's like half this movie.
It's
Because
half
people
the
who are
movie.
playing rollerball, they're really playing rollerball. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest. There are really people skating around with motorcycles zipping by. I mean, it's a blood sport.
It's a real thing. Well, in this future world, the corporations take care of everything. So it's got to be boring. There's really nothing going on. They really don't have to
Right.
work. They really don't need to. There's no hunger. There's no poverty. There's nothing going on except sex ladies and rollerball.
So, I mean, we don't really get to see how regular people live in this dystopian future.
Right. We saw like the
only see-
Kardashians of this future world, how they live.
We see how James Caan, who plays Jonathan, who's like the biggest star of Rollerball, we
Right.
see how he lives in like a huge luxurious ranch, riding horses. And he's got kind of like Soylent Green. Like, I guess the company sends you like a lady friend who lives with you for 6 months or whatever until they
Which he
tell her
treats
to
which he
shove off.
treats like trash. And doesn't even like let them know they're being replaced. They're just like, peace. Because that was
You
cool.
weren't even going to say goodbye. He's like, we'll talk about this later. And by later, I mean never.
And I mean, get the out. What? She's like, what?
Well, I wonder, you're right. He seemed very callous, but during the course of the movie, they established that he had the love of his life and that the company made
Took
her
her
go
away.
off and took her away to go live with an executive
Right.
who took a fancy to her. And he just had to take it, basically. So you wonder if he's supposed to say, like, yes, you're kind of forcing these other women upon me, but my true love is still out there, and that's the one I really care about.
And by forcing, he's
know.
calling up and asking for a replacement. So
He didn't, I don't think he could. There was no scene where he was on the phone going, you gotta get this lady out of here. She's getting a little too clingy. She too clingy. Give me
he
somebody
called
new.
to send a new one over.
Oh, did he? Maybe
Yes, there's actually a scene where he's calling. Can you send another lovely lady over that I can just look at with disdain and give her weird, I don't know, weird pills so she passes out and says gibberish? Nice.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in this movie. And I have to say, this is the 70s. So you can have your hero with the shirt off half the movie, full on like furry, Sasquatch body.
He was
Furry
a hairy
shoulders,
bear.
furry
He
back.
was a scary bear.
Absolutely. And the hair on his back matched the hair on his head. I mean, he was
Absolutely.
he was a furry monster.
Absolutely. That was the time, man.
They loved it. That was a thing. So
That made her more
So
masculine.
there's hope for me yet. That's exactly right.
Didn't we have a discussion about transporting back hair on top of your head? It's a little different texture.
We need to, right? It is, and we kind of like this. Kind of a weird, scary.
It'd be like
Brillo
pubic
pad
hair
kind of
just
texture.
growing out on the front. Long, straight on the sides, and then just like this. Like a rug like Dennis DeYoung.
It's like, exactly like Dennis
That's a
DeYoung.
deep cut. That's a
lead singer of Styx. For those of you guys who was a band, we have to keep explaining as we such hits as "Lady." Anyway,
when you're with
good
me,
time.
I'm smiling.
Right. No. Yeah, part of growing older as a gentleman is your hair will often recede. Maybe not to this extent. But you'll also get hair in weird places where you didn't used to have hair.
That's
It's a
right.
sad situation.
As a bonus of, and quite frankly, even as a lady, your hair starts thinning. But as a bonus, you'll get hair in places you never wanted to have hair. So that's great.
That's great. It's called
fun
irony.
time. They're like, it's Jesus laughing at us. Ha 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 ha.
That is go. You still want some hair? Here's some crazy hair for you. It's a sad situation. At one point, Jonathan is called up to meet the boss, played by John Houseman, and told essentially, there's some executives who want you to retire, Jonathan. And so the central thrust of this movie is the company wants him to retire, and I think at the end we find out why. And he's like,
really?
Well,
Because I don't even remember. Is it just because he's too good? Why did they want him to retire? I don't even remember.
I think, and again, I may have been hallucinating this. I think it was something along the lines of, like, they're supposed to be nameless, faceless, interchangeable players.
Oh,
he's become
he's a star.
Popular. He's a star. That's right. In this society, we don't want stars.
We don't want
we just
leaders.
Want drones.
Right.
That's right. I think they say something to that effect. But it's not like he was like attending like union meetings or something, right?
He could give
There's no like scene like that at all.
And quite frankly, if they just gave him his wife back, there would be no movie. They'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, she can come back. Okay. The end.
Right. So they're like, you need to retire. And he says, I don't want to retire. So then they start changing the rules of the game. Instead of like literally sending stormtroopers to his house to grab him,
kicking his door, and he disappears and dies in one of those Putin airplane crashes where I don't know what happened.
Right, 100%.
They're so all powerful and know everything. Why they just handle this a little bit differently?
They do not, evidently. They literally say like, well, for the next game against Tokyo, we're going to change it. So there's, what is it? No
time limits. But no penalties, no time limits. Okay.
First one is like no penalties and minimum substitutions.
Right.
And then when that doesn't work, the final game, they're like no penalties, no substitutions, and no time limit. So since they don't really explain the rules of the game, is it just we're going to keep playing till everyone's dead? Until
they scores. Is it that, or is it? We don't know if they have to score a certain amount of points.
There's no tutorial on how on the rules of rollerball. So it seems like I don't know what a penalty is anyway. So they have like people with motorcycles running over people and.
Well, they talked about that they didn't care about the penalties anyway. Like in the early pep talks. In one of the more glorious racist scenes where they have, what's his name? Mr. Ito, who was in Quincy, comes on and tries to explain Japanese culture and what they'll be doing, and they just yada yada it. It was very strange.
Right, they were playing a team in Tokyo, and they brought in Quincy's. Was he an associate medical examiner?
lab tech? He's the lab guy.
I haven't seen Quincy in 35 years, but yeah.
But I had to look him up. I'm like, this dude looks so familiar.
The assistant medical examiner, who was also in Buckaroo Banzai, we've talked about that before.
Oh, okay,
he was Buckaroo's mentor in Buckaroo Banzai. He's the hardest working man in show business. Right. He tries to teach them that the Japanese players have kind of an erratic style. So it's important.
But they're so arrogant. They're not interested in learning anything. Yeah.
Not at all. Well, it was James Caan's buddy on the team, like the enforcer on the team, who's called Moon Pie. For some reason, no explanation. Why
I have no idea. I have no idea what that's supposed to be.
He later gets put into a coma after the game against the Japanese, probably because of his racist proclivities.
That's what you get. What you get, and you don't throw a fit. Racist,
right? Racist. It's called karma. So this movie is. I mean, I don't want to say it's boring, but it's a little boring.
Honestly, I thought the first 3 quarters was pretty interesting. I really enjoyed the sets were amazing. They went around to find all this like brutalist and interesting buildings to add to the idea that we're in this futuristic society. The Energy Corporation building is really the BMW headquarters in Munich, and also appears in Suspiria.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah, I found that. And then I can't remember. There's like a Fuji building. There was another building in Berlin that they use for like the headquarters. And then when he goes into the main office where it's all futuristic
Yes.
with like the perfect 70s furniture. God,
Yes.
that was like in Switzerland. It's like, I don't know, the what do we have in Switzerland? It's not the United Nations, but it's something along those lines, headquarters.
Well, yeah, it definitely had an aesthetic it was going for. But again, it was like James Caan, his fashion was hard 70s.
Oh, God, I loved it.
Things unzipped to like mid-navel with a chain and furry chest hair. He's wearing like these cowboy boots with the skin-tight pants on, polyester.
Exactly.
Up the yin-yang.
He had to have tucked because he either has nothing or he's tucking because there was no room to hide anything. I would have to say the men's fashion is so horribly dated, but the women's fashion is still kind of like, it's that 70s romantic, a lot of satin, a lot of scarves. It was still, it was very cool. I mean, it's one of these things whenever they try to do a movie in the 70s or the 80s, it never looks right. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is a real slice of fashion. And I was thinking, nobody dresses up anymore. Look at everybody's going to a cocktail party and they are dressed up beautifully. And I was thinking, I mourned that a little bit. Why don't I get invited to nicer parties?
Well, it's like they're kind of these flowing kind of gown, kind of almost like a muumuu kind of flopping around. Very
or pants, the long flowing like palazzo pants. But it is that in the 70s had, for at least women's fashion, had this kind of like dreamy, romantic kind of thing, along with the weird disco and the wraparound pants and the clear plastic wraparound skirt for American bands. Where you just wear, that's when ballet clothes became like a thing you would just wear. Everybody has to wear tights and leotards. Weep, weep.
So are you dancing?
That was me.
Oh, I thought you were doing the hustle for a minute there.
I was doing the hustle, followed by the Nutcracker.
The Nutcracker Suite.
So that's very interesting. I was down with it for at least 3/4, and then the end got really boring. I really could care less. Well, it's like a car chase, except that they're just killing as many people as possible.
Right. Well, and that was the thing. They're like, we're changing the rules to make it more deadly. And you're like, it was plenty deadly to begin with.
They talk about the record was like 8 people got killed in one of his famous matches. And everybody was like...
Yes, you set the record, Jonathan. You murdered 8 people last week. Yes.
Yes.
It's murder and mayhem. I mean, I don't know how you field the team if every time you play, you lose 9 people.
You decimate the team. How do you play next week?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Makes no sense. Now, when it comes to kind of dystopian future stories, there's typically your 2 styles. There's like that kind of totalitarian 1984 future, but the other side is the Brave New World, Aldous Huxley version, where it's like, you know, the opium of the masses.
Yeah.
Right. We've given you everything that you need so you don't rise up against the fact that we've taken away all your rights.
Right.
Kind of thing. So ideally, I think we're supposed to think this is kind of a Brave New World situation, but you don't really see, they talk about we've given, you know, everything you need. We give people everything you need, but we don't see what the drawback is. I mean, I don't know.
The only humanitarian crisis is they need Jonathan to retire, and I'm not sure. Yes. In sports, they can make you retire, correct? Yes. You're basically fired and they pay you out, right? But not in our future. They're so equal that they don't want to do anything shady. I mean, usually in totalitarian governments, the black shirts are just going to come and disappear you. But not here in this glorious future. This is literally all the story of Jonathan doesn't want to retire. That's it.
Yes.
That's
100%.
And they took his wife away.
That's the story of every athlete, by the way. The story of every athlete in the real world is they don't want to retire.
That's
I
right.
mean, let's be honest.
What do you
but
mean?
eventually, coach cuts down your minutes, and eventually
Yeah.
the team just cuts you.
Mhm.
That's like, and they couldn't have just done that because everywhere Jonathan goes, he has a heart to heart with somebody he considers like a friend or a mentor, and they're always like, "Why don't you just retire?" The place said they're going to set you up with everything you want, everything you need. You'll live out your days on your beautiful ranch. Everything's cool. He's like, "No, I'm not going to." Well, then we have to kill you.
Except we're not going to actually kill you. Because we can't do that. This is some, I don't know.
Right.
Except for the snatching of his wife, is this some kind of ethical totalitarian government? We can't just outright kill you, but we're just
Yes.
going to make the game harder. It's already a murder game. We're just going to make it a little bit harder.
It's like, okay, you're a professional football player. Here's what we're going to do. We want you to retire. You won't retire? Okay, well, now you can't wear a helmet. You're still going to play every game.
You
No
have to play
pads
naked. Yeah,
You
you're
have to play-
naked, dangles dangling, and there's going to be a bonus on anyone who can snatch your balls. Boom!
That would get me to retire.
New rules.
And again, not just him, but everybody. No, from now on, no one on either team can wear pads or helmets anymore.
Everybody's dangles are dangling.
Everybody's dangling. And now we're not going to have there's not going to be any timeouts. And we're going to have no time limits. They're just going to crash into each other until you break your neck, I guess.
Yeah.
And
Or until the team kills you because they're so pissed. Just because you fucking won't retire.
Right. His friends are being put into comas because of the rule changes because of his ridiculousness.
He still stands firm. He's like, nah.
Not doing it.
Nah. And then what? So after the last match, when everyone's dead but one homie, and he scores the final thing, and then what happens next week? All his friends are dead because he wouldn't retire.
Both teams have been massacred except for him. He's the last one standing. He scores another goal. The crowd cheers Jonathan. Jonathan. You see John Houseman shaking his head sadly. And that's the end of the movie. So I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means. The next match, there's no substitution, so it's just him against whatever team they're playing next.
He's not allowed to wear skates next time.
He's not allowed to wear skates. He has to walk just on ground glass for the final.
Yes, it becomes a sack race. He just has to hop around with motorcycles.
Hop out of the way of the motorcycles.
The murder cycles. Absolutely. Write that down. That's brilliant.
I mean, I thought part of it was good. I mean, it's a lot of like the gladiator spirit. When they go to that cocktail party where they're watching, like, which was the equivalent of, remember, the NFL's greatest hits, where it's the agony of defeat.
Yes.
It looked like literally like a Roman orgy. Everybody was getting high and drunk, laying all over each other.
Yes.
The gladiators would come in. The women would swarm. I thought that was all interesting. I thought, I mean, not that doesn't happen right this very moment.
Right. And again, we can't stress how 70s it all was. You had James Caan with like his 70s white boy fro. You had another dude with big old handlebar mustache and hair hanging down. It was like, come on.
I want the handlebar mustache to just weave into the neck hair that goes right into the chest hair and the back hair and the ass hair and the toe hair. I just want it to be some kind of a freak show thing, like where he just becomes Wolf Boy.
I was just going to say that JoJo the Wolf Boy is what you want him to eventually become.
Or Chuck Norris, because that's pretty close.
That was pretty. You better believe it. I watched early Chuck Norris. He had no facial hair. He had no facial hair. He had some sideburns, but no facial hair. Then he just had the mustache for a movie or two, and then he's just like, I'm just going full beard, and that was his
Then
look.
he was just a werewolf.
He literally was just a werewolf after that. Very sad. Just a werewolf. Can we talk about John Houseman? Do you know why John Houseman is famous?
From the Paper Chase. No?
Paper Chase was before my time. I knew him from two things.
Uh-oh.
He was Ricky Schroeder's grandfather on Silver Spoons.
I never watched
is what I remember him from. And he was in the Smith Barney ads. We make money the old-fashioned way. We
We
earn
earn it.
That was his big thing. Right. I don't even know if Smith Barney's still around. Is that still a thing? Merrill Lynch?
I don't know. Did they go down
Lehman
with
Brothers?
Enron, Goldman Sachs? Who the hell
Right.
knows?
That's what I'm asking. Who knows? Who knows?
Who
But
knows? It's a
evidently he
mystery.
was like before that he was like a movie producer. Like he helped produce like Citizen Kane with Orson Welles and stuff back.
Oh, so he's a movie producer in like 1920. Is that what you're saying?
Right. In the 1850s, he was the first. Yes, he's also Nosferatu. He and then there was Ken Orlock. In the late 60s through the early 70s, he was also like the top theater teacher, professor at Juilliard. So with his first drama class was like Kevin Kline and Patti LuPone and other people, so he was like a big kind of theater guy. Yeah. Before eventually doing The Paper Chase, which was a movie first and then became a short-lived TV series. So there you go. Good times. So any last thoughts or feelings, Aaron, on Rollerball?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting. I don't know what's wrong with you, but I thought. I mean, of course, there's many flaws, but I thought the overall vibe was good. I like. God, I liked all the settings. I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, slice of life.
Now,
Is it stupid? Should they just have killed him and then the movie was over after 15 minutes? Yeah, that makes more sense. It's Brave New World, but they all were hitting the Soma.
It's funny for a lot of reasons where it's like Rollerball seems kind of like a goofy name for a movie, number one.
But I mean, it's because it's roller derby. Is that weirder or less weird?
I don't know. I can't explain it. Do you now? When he talked about how you guys stole my wife and took her away, they said, well, she wanted to leave, and then when she comes back to him, he feels that she's only there because the company has sent her back.
So that's the question.
Do you think that's true? I didn't get that sense.
I think that's something they tell, because while she was getting loaded at the orgy, she was out of her mind, but you could tell there was that longing and that sadness.
There's a different, okay, so there's two different girls. There's the girl Maxie, I think her name was Marxie. I don't remember what her name was. Marky Post or something like that. There was the girl
Marky Post.
There was the girl. There's the girl that he comes home and basically gives her walking papers, and he keeps seeing her. She keeps coming back, but that's not his lady. His lady is Maud Adams from the James Bond movies, who shows up, that he's watching her videos, where it's like her and him are like laying in a field, and then there's
she's
their
not
buddies
the lady
in there too.
With the red and the at the orgy. That wasn't his wife.
No, that was the girl kicked out earlier in the movie.
Oh, I missed that.
Who was like, you weren't going to say goodbye. That was his live-in lady that he didn't really care about. The one he cared about was the one he was watching her videos. It's kind of like that movie Minority Report, where there are those moments where he's like looking at old videos of his past relationship or whatever.
Yeah.
So she comes back and they kind of reunite. But he's like, you're only here because the company sent you. And she's like, yes, they sent me, but that's not why I'm here. Because a lot of people are like, you should quit because this is a dangerous, horrible sport anyway. And they're going to take care of you. So why don't you just retire and not subject yourself to this anymore? But it's kind of a similar message to what the company is saying. So can we trust? Who knows?
Right.
And then it was kind of a sad moment when she walks in and he like puts on her video and then erases it after watching it. That was his way of being like, okay, I guess we're good.
F you.
Deuces.
Yeah.
Deuces. So.
Yeah, because now the corporations got everybody. Everybody's telling them, just do it.
It was.
Like, why would you go against the corporation?
Right. His mentor was telling him don't do it, or was telling him to retire. The company was telling him to retire. His coach was like, why can't you listen to anybody and just retire? His coach. If your coach is telling you to retire, that's a sign.
That's a sign. Why can't they just say you fired? You fired.
Your contract's not being renewed.
Correct.
Any other thoughts and feelings?
Because we don't give a shit. Get out. We're still a corporation. We're not going to tell you nothing.
You don't need to know.
Yeah, I thought it was entertaining. Clearly, you probably had the LL Cool J version stuck in your head, so that confused you.
Don't sleep on the LL Cool J version because you've got Rebecca Romijn doing some crazy Eastern European accent for no reason.
Did you just tell me it's a 2% on Rotten Tomatoes?
Yes, it is.
But we should ignore that. Double down.
Do not ignore that. It earned every percent. Should we go behind the scenes?
Do it.
Good times. I talked about this briefly. This is one of the first films ever to include the stunt performers' names in the final credits.
Interesting.
Yeah, because like I said, they're really doing
that
this
was
stuff.
Always. Yeah.
No,
they're rollerballing it.
They were rollerballing it because you really are skating around and there really is a motorcycle swimming by. And frankly, James Caan can skate.
Yeah.
He's doing
I could not
skating.
do this. I can do this on a flat surface. But I'm not going up on banks and stuff. He was up and down. He was rocking it.
He was doing his thing. I was convinced it was going to be kind of a fake-o 70s stunt man with a mustache.
No.
But it wasn't. It was him.
I bet he went to a lot of roller disco back in the day when that was a thing.
Disco boogie, absolutely.
Was he in Xanadu?
He was. The game of rollerball was so realistic that the cast, extras, and stunt performers played it between takes on the set.
Yes, I was good. That was my contribution for behind the scene. Absolutely, that tells you how fun it was, and how many of those were
having a
killed.
ball.
I always thought the only way to improve this movie is if the ball was, in fact, the ball from Phantasm. That would just click it up to the next level. That would be so amazing. So when I threw it, a giant spork came out and hit you in the head.
Stuck you. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Director Norman Jewison intended this film to be anti-violence, but audiences loved the action of the game. That there was actually talk about forming actual rollerball leagues in the wake of this film, and he was horrified.
How is there anything in this movie about anti-violence? And I love Norman Jewison. He has directed some of my most favorite movies. I just watched Moonstruck last night. Jesus Christ Superstar. Right. I mean, the list goes on.
The list goes on. And I read somewhere Norman Jewison, not Jewish.
Not Jewish.
That's right.
It's Jewish son. He's just the son of a Jewish person.
That is correct. There was only one rollerball rink. It was redressed each time to appear as rinks in different cities.
I thought it was slick.
Good stuff. Many of the extras in the film received an extra wage in order to cut their fashionably long hair so that the look of the film would not be tied to an era in which it was made. Yeah, they failed on that one. Nice try.
I mean, it's no more out of date than 2001 or whatever. They all have that same. But you can't help it. That's your time.
Oh, absolutely. Well, right. You view the world through the fashion of that time.
Right.
So a lot of things that just appear like, oh, well, this is the way things are and this is the way they'll always be.
In the future, there'll be no zippers or buttons. It'll all be Velcro.
It'll all be Velcro. That's space age technology. Norman Jewison said he cast James Caan as Jonathan E. in the film after seeing him play Brian Piccolo in the TV film Brian's Song. Do you remember Brian's Song?
You know, I never saw that. That's a man song, it was a man movie.
It's a man movie from the early 70s. Like, right. Men loved it. It was with James Caan and, oh my God, Billy D. Williams. Billy D. Williams played the Kansas Comet, whose name just jumped out of my brain. Gale Sayers. Gale Sayers. They were both Chicago Bears running backs, Brian Piccolo. And it's about their relationship, like two different guys from two different sides of the track, nothing in common, who form like this serious friendship. And then James Caan gets cancer. So towards the end of the movie, he dies. Spoiler alert. And it's a tearjerker for men.
It is a hallmark for men. So
it's hallmark for men. That's
it gives
exactly what
it's okay to cry in this movie if you're a man.
It's okay to love another man. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's the message.
That's the message. Thank you, 1970s.
They were concerned about finding sufficient extras for the film in order to make Tokyo look credible. The crew dropped off flyers at local hotels, which resulted in 150 eager Asians showing up for the required days of filming. Just random Asian vacationers just showing up to be extras.
Because in the 70s, there were no people of Asian descent. Were they still at the internment camps? What happened there?
Yes.
They're still at Manzanar? What was happening?
It's a sad situation.
I mean, a lot of this was filmed in Europe, so.
Yes, that is true. Contrary to rumors, no one died during the filming of any of the stunts in the film. However, there were some serious injuries, including a few that required hospitalization. So
I could see that.
This film takes place in 2018.
Well, I think in 2018, wasn't that when roller derby was coming back? It was Lady Roller Derby, though.
It was Lady Roller Derby, absolutely. I don't know if it was 2018. I think it was like 210.
Maybe a little earlier. Yeah, maybe you're right.
205. I'm trying to remember. Yeah. When asked what this film was about, James Caan reportedly answered, "It's about 90 minutes."
Ah! That sounds very James Caan-y.
Yes. He was not a fan of many of the movies he made. Right?
Great.
There's a number of stories of somebody going up to him saying, "I loved Alien Nation." He's like, "Why are you talking about that film? That was horrible." Very upset. Very upset.
Sounds about right. And then he pulled a Sonny Corleone and just beat the shit out of him.
That's what he did. Why are you talking to me? Okay. Let's talk about the cast and crew, shall we?
Love your James Caan impression.
You like it? Norman Jewison was the director-writer of Rollerball. You know him for Jesus Christ Superstar, In the Heat of the Night with Sidney Poitier.
That's a great one.
Moonstruck in 1987. Yep. The Hurricane with Denzel Washington.
Didn't see that.
A ton of stuff.
Yeah.
Ton of stuff.
Successful fella.
Very successful. James Caan played Jonathan E. You know him from such films as Thief in 1981, Rollerball, Misery in 1990, The Godfather. He played Sonny Corleone in 1972, etc. Alien Nation with our friend Mandy Patinkin.
Yes.
Let's see. John Houseman played Bartholomew, who was, I don't know, the leader of the company, I guess.
The corporation.
It was the energy company, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
You know him from The Paper Chase in 1973, the movie. He played Charles W. Kingsfield Jr. Rollerball. He was in 3 Days of the Condor with Robert Redford and Jane Fonda in 1975. And he was in John Carpenter's The Fog in 1980. There you go.
Not a classic. Not a
how dare you? We need to talk about that on this show. Maud Adams played Ella, the former wife. You know her for Octopussy. She played Octopussy, the titular role.
Oh my God! It was like the worst James Bond name ever. I'm like,
it was crazy.
Really?
It was crazy.
Front Door Pussy. Because it's not something.
I love it.
They just wanted to throw the word pussy in there and see if they can get away with it.
And they did. They did. She also was in another James Bond movie. She played Andrea Anders in The Man with the Golden Gun.
All right.
So she's famous for playing two different Bond girl characters in two different movies.
Bless her. And then she
That's
did this.
Never happened before. And then she did. And then she did this. She was in Rollerball. She was in Tattoo in 1981. I'm unfamiliar with that.
Unfamiliar.
And Anybody else you want to know about from this movie?
What about his weird mustachio friend? The one that gets into the
John
coma.
Beck played Moon Pie. You know him from Rollerball in 1975. He was in Sleeper,
Oh, Woody
1973.
Allen. All
Woody
right.
Allen. He was in something called Black Day, Blue Night in 1995. Unfamiliar with that.
Unfamiliar. Is that porn?
He, who's to say? He was in something called Audrey Rose in 1977.
Oh no, Audrey Rose is an exorcism movie. That's a good one.
He played Bill Templeton in such a film.
All right.
One thing I wanted to say is the blonde woman who comes to live with Jonathan
Oh yeah,
E.
she looked like a supermodel.
She was John Cleese's ex-wife.
Interesting.
Boom.
All right,
One of
John
his
Cleese.
ex-wives.
What
One
I
of
was
his
going to
ex-wives.
say, he seems like he's a pain in the ass. Love John
He's had a
Cleese,
few.
but he
His
seems
first-
like he'd be difficult.
His first
Fussy.
ex-wife was in her name was Connie Booth, and she was in Faulty Towers with him.
Yes.
She was in like Monty Python, all the Monty Python stuff.
Yeah, she was the
was
girl in all the Monty Python stuff. Yeah, she was
Right.
the housekeeper in Faulty Towers, which if you haven't seen
Yes.
it is hysterical.
Good stuff.
When the
We
Germans-
talked about
Don't
We
mention
talked
the war. Don't mention the war. I did
That's
once,
right.
but I think I got away with it.
Robert Ito played strategy coach for the Houston team. We mentioned him briefly. You know him from he was Professor Hakita in the Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. He was in Rollerball. He was Sam Fujiyama for 148 episodes of Quincy M.E. And he was in one episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. So there you go.
There we go.
One more name I want to talk about. Ralph Richardson played the librarian
Yes.
in Rollerball.
yes.
I only mentioned him because he was in another movie we talked about recently. Do you remember what it was?
Oh God, I looked it up too. I was like, what was he just in? Something We Love, though. What was it?
He was the Supreme Being in Time Bandits.
That's right. I love Ralph
Boom.
Richardson.
He was
He's
also
he-
in Dr. Zhivago in 1965. The
Yes!
Heiress in 1949. The
I love
Fallen
Dr.
Idol in
Zhivago.
1948.
A lot of stuff.
Yep. I think that's all we need to know.
That's
Unless you
enough.
can think of anybody else you want to know about.
That was a deep reaches there.
That was a deep. Let's talk about the rating, shall we? Rollerball. Currently, 67% on Rotten Tomatoes. You know what the audience gave it?
74.
61. Wah, wah,
I would
wah.
think it was at least garner a C rating, you know. Interesting.
Let's talk.
All right.
Let's talk about the top critics. Vincent Canby of the New York Times says everyone else, including Mr. Khan and John Houseman, who plays a leading Houston executive, is more solemn and serious than the movie ever merits. 1.5 out of 5 stars. Boom! He dropped a hammer on this one. And Variety staff. Norman Jewison, sensational futuristic drama about a world of corporate state
Sensational.
stars. James Caan in an excellent performance as a famed athlete who fights for his identity and free will just because he didn't want to retire.
Because he didn't want to
There you go.
retire. This could have been the Tom Brady show.
Absolutely. What is your rating?
Maybe his
for
wife was
Rollerball?
reassigned because he wouldn't retire.
That's absolutely true. Giselle Bundchen.
It's all
reassigned.
coming true.
It's all coming.
It's foretold
back
in
to-
Rollerball.
That's right. As prophesied.
As prophesied.
What is your rating for Rollerball?
Oh, I mean, it's not terrible. It's not.
You were singing its praises a minute ago. Now it's not
some parts
terrible.
I liked, but there's so many holes in it, and then the end just started getting boring. All the fighting, after a while, it just becomes white noise, and it's like you're
It
just
does.
watching car races again. You're like, oh, okay, another race through the streets of whatever Chicago. Who
Okay.
cares? So I'm going to give it 2.75 1970s Roman orgy tickets. All are welcome,
You have to get a
children.
ticket for that.
You got it, and giving it away for free. All are welcome, children.
It's non-refundable ticket, absolutely. No, I'm kind of on board with you. Of course, for the entire recording, you were like, it set the tone. It is iconic. It really reframed how we think about sports and about film in general.
Not about film. That's right. It changed my life. I have a new direction since watching Rollerball. James Caan should be canonized as a saint. He's already, playing Italian, so he's halfway there. I mean, there are parts of it I really like, but it's not enough to carry the whole movie.
I mean, okay, I gave it 2.5 stars.
I haven't said 2.5 what out of what. So it's 2.75.
Roman orgy tickets is what you said.
I forgot.
How many more things do you want to add to this?
Nothing was in anyone's butt, so I got confused.
I give it 2.5 crazy ex-girlfriend blowing up trees in the backyard for no reason. Out of 5.
And laughing.
Yes, this is true. It was fine.
For what point also?
Yes. She was just to show her dissatisfaction with Jonathan E., I guess.
And trees.
And trees. It was fine. It wasn't anything outstanding. I mean, if you happen to watch it, you could do worse, but it's not like I have to seek it out kind of film. It's kind of my attitude. Like I said, I paid $3.99 to watch it. I fell asleep the first time I watched it. I fell asleep the second time I watched it.
Did you have to pay $3.99 again?
I did not. Thank Jesus, I did not. That's something.
You didn't buy it? You don't own it?
No. And and you also have to understand that movies from the 70s and earlier were running at a different pace. They had a slower pace. They were a slow burn, and you have to kind of accept that going in. That being said, I thought it was okay at best. So 2.5. There you go. Good times.
Okay.
So thank you very much. Go to our pages on Twitter, Facebook, X. I've been calling it Twitter. It's not Twitter anymore. It's X.
The platform formerly known as Twitter.
Absolutely. Threads, Instagram, TikTok. You could also be watching us on YouTube this very second. You can also
if we were live streaming.
If we were live streaming. You can also email us at the podcast that would die at Gmail. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and where the finer podcasts are available. So don't forget to like, share, rate, and review. Won't you?
Won't you please tell a friend?
Aaron, what's your social media situation?
I'm on the XYZ. I'm on the Threads. I am on the Gram. I am the Cult of Aaron. Join the cult. I am also Don't Feed the Pigeon on Instagram. Professionally, I'm on Artsy and First Dibs under the Instant Dream Gallery. Aaron Doherty. Buy something, won't you?
Beautiful. As you guys know, each week we try to include a little listener, viewer, response, mail, whatever you want to say. So, responding to our episode Knock at the Cabin, we had some feedback. Here we go. George Hannah Wilson simply said, wasn't a fan.
You're mistaken, sir. You're mistaken, sir.
William James said, I can't remember much at all about it. I never got around to the book, but I expect it's better. Not that the film was bad, I just don't remember it.
What, did the Men in Black come in and give you a little flash?
Yep. Next week.
Excuse me.
You had a comment as well?
I have a comment. This is in regard to our Throwback Thursday post on The Hunger. Mark Rodriguez, this is on the Ticker Talker. I tried to watch the movie, but my mother wouldn't let me. That's probably for the best. Although you missed some great Bauhaus singing and the immortal David Bowie.
Oh, well, don't forget the erotic lives of Catherine Deneuve and
Susan Sarandon. It's an all-star cast. All-star.
It'll knock you on your butt, that's for sure. Now, my question was this like when he was a child, or is this currently he is a child and his mom will not let him watch? Those are my questions.
Well, that is something I do not have the answer to. Sadly.
These are important questions. I think we can all agree.
I think that my first thought is this like a 7-year-old sending me a message? Because Lord knows, I'm just following everybody.
Because Lord knows.
Lord knows.
So next week, we're going to be discussing the 70s, fantasy film, The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, starring Caroline Munro, Tom Baker, John Philip Law. It's an all-star cast, as you might imagine.
I haven't seen it in so long, but it is iconic.
Iconic. And
stop motion animation, motherfucker.
It's that good Harryhausen stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be joined by our friend Antonio from the Cultworthy podcast. So look forward to that as well. Where can you see The Golden Voyage? These are important.
That's a question. Tell me, because I got to watch it.
You can watch it on Fubo. Fubo, if you have a subscription.
Fubo's not free anymore. That used to be free.
Something called IndieFlix. You can watch it on that if you have a subscription. Otherwise, $3.99. Are you out of your mind?
That's what it sounds like. Remember when that bonus of being on Amazon Prime was all the free movies, and then you realize it was a bunch of weird shit you'd never seen before in your life. Then movies were $99, $1.99, $2.99, $3.99. Mother
Absolutely.
effers.
Very upsetting. Very upsetting, to say the least. So check that out.
Yes.
Of course, I own it, as you know.
Of course.
So check that out. Send any favorite scenes, favorite quotes, comments, and questions, and maybe we'll talk about it on our next show. So thank you very much, and be well.
Later, kids.